My name is Mary, the diabetes lady, and this is my wonderful husband, Dick. He said to me today, "You should call me the diabetes guy." I said, "That's a good idea. I think I'll do that." Okay, what we've come together to do is share with you how we beat diabetes. You'll hear me say over and over again, ad nauseum, that I'm not here to treat anybody's diabetes. I'm not here to diagnose anything. I will answer any questions that maybe that I have the answers for, but I will tell you that you really need to see your doctor. If you do any changes in lifestyle, any changes in exercise, any changes period in your diet, you first need to check with your physician. That is who you talk to, and that is who you refer yourself to, okay? Everybody understands it? Everybody that understands it, raise their hand, please. Wonderful. Okay, great. Okay, so we are here for education purposes only, not to diagnose or treat any illness. But what we are here is to change your lives. You will not leave this room unchanged. What you hear tonight will change your lives forever. You will not be able to unring the bell that I am going to ring for you tonight. It is absolutely the best thing that ever happened to my husband and I. So I want to share that with you, and I want to make change in even one person's life here tonight. And I want you to, we're going to hear about that in 4 weeks, any changes that might have happened. What I want to see tonight is light bulbs going off over all of your heads. I want to see that something new is being said. And believe me, I see these light bulbs every class we teach, so I know that's going to happen. So yes, that's what I want to see. I want to see light bulbs, that Mary is saying something I've never heard before. This is amazing. And what has happened to us has been amazing, and that's what we want to share with you. We have a 3-step program. Our program involves education, motivation, and implementation. This is a 4-week course, and it is packed, filled with information. When you go to your doctor the next time, I want you to start asking that man or that woman a lot of questions. Why am I doing this? What is this for? How come? Blah, 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 blah. And he's going to say, "I bet you went to see Mary, that diabetes lady, didn't you?" But that's what we want for you to do. We want for you to be able to be knowledgeable so that your doctor can speak to you and you can understand what he's saying or she's saying, and you can ask very important questions so that it makes you a partner in your health care. As I said, it is not your doctor's disease, it is not your husband's, wife's, it is yours. People will tell me, I go to the doctor, I take my meds. What else do I have to do? Oh, that's what my husband did. Went to the doctor, took his meds. So I want you, if you have diabetes or your loved one, they need to know that they need to take responsibility for this disease. They're not to blame for it, but you need to take responsibility for it. When you do that, life changes immediately, because now you know that there's something you can do, and guess what? You're in control. Not the diabetes anymore. You are in control. We're going to go through some success stories. I'm going to give you a couple of success stories, just 3 success stories from our last class back in March when we did it here. And we will ask you this too. At the end of the class, we asked, anybody have anything to share? First success story is a lady was sitting over there where Leonard is sitting, and she raised her hand and she said, she was near tears. And she said, "I have to tell you something. I want everyone to know this." She said, "I thought I was getting dementia. I would be driving somewhere and I didn't know where I was going, or I'd forget where I was going. After taking these classes and listening to what Mary said, my brain and my mind has cleared up completely, and I am so excited," she said. How do you think that made me feel? That was pretty great. I was so happy for her. The fellow that was sitting right here raised his hand and said, "I want to share." This is success story number 2. He said, I went to my doctor this week, and he took me off one of my diabetes medications. And my doctor said to me, I don't know what you're doing, but keep doing it. He said, you are doing fantastic. This man was elated, as you can imagine. He was really, really happy. And so was his doctor. Third success story has to do with a while back. A fellow that I knew through church was, I think he was close to 80, I believe, at the time. And he had been suffering with type 2 diabetes for a very long time. And I met him one day, and we talked tonight about divine intervention. I really believe in that. The power of intention, the force and all that. Well, I said to myself, I've got to get together with somehow, because I know he has diabetes and I know I can help him. So somehow we come together. We went to church, and there he was. He was standing there it's like, wow. So I said to let's talk. He said to me, Mary, I have a wonderful, wonderful doctor. He said, and neither he nor I can get my blood sugars under 160 fasting blood in the morning. That's pretty high, okay? And I said to him, give me 2 weeks. Just give me 2 weeks. Well, he gave me a month. And he went to the doctor at the end of that month. And I still remember words to me. He said, my doctor was delighted. He couldn't believe that his blood sugar readings were coming in at 99, 95, 100. Those are our success stories, just some of them. And that's why we do what we do. We have been blessed, and we want to pay it forward. So tonight we're going to dissect and explode some myths. You're going to be like, what is she talking about? She can't say that. Yes, she can. Okay, some of the myths. Let's get to them. Fat makes you fat. Myth. It takes willpower to lose weight. Another myth. This is one of my favorites. Diabetes is a progressive, debilitating disease. And that is a direct quote from a diabetes doctor at a nearby hospital where Dick and I went for a seminar because I was just real curious as to what are they telling people. We went for this seminar. There was a room full of people. What, 50 maybe?
Oh,
Easily 100 people?
Maybe 100.
And he's standing up there and he's telling them that it's a debilitating disease and it's progressive and there's not much you can do about it. And I said to Dick, oh my God, hold me in this chair, because I'm about to get up, stand on this table, and tell him he's full of baloney. Dick said to me, because he knows I do it, he said to me, please, don't do it. I didn't, of course. But this is a direct quote from that doctor. You need to avoid insulin injections at all costs. That's a myth. Insulin is there to help you. It's there to protect you from dying, from many other things. So when your doctor says you need insulin, you need to go on it, but you need to be very smart about it. You need to know, and some of the things we're going to talk about is, how do we take insulin injections to give the maximum benefit from insulin? What kind of insulin should we be looking at, asking the doctor about? When you go to that doctor and he says, I want you on Lantus and this, you're going to say, well, wait a minute, how many units of that am I, we're going to be giving you some good questions to be asking. Another one, low-fat foods are good for you. Yeah, right. We're going to talk about that. Pre-diabetes means that you may become a diabetic. You are a diabetic. If you have pre-diabetes, you are a diabetic, and you tell your doctor, I want to be treated as such. We're going to talk about that. And one of the things that the American Diabetes Association talks about, 60 to 65% of your meals should be carbohydrates. God. Horrible advice. Horrible advice. Would you all agree, by a show of hands, that we have an epidemic in this country of obesity? Would you also agree that we also have, or are near, an epidemic of diabetes? Okay, my big question, my big, bold question is this. How can that be? We have had 30 years at least of fat-free foods. Take the fat out of this, take the fat out of that. How can that be? We shouldn't have any kind of an epidemic. We shouldn't have any obesity. Everybody should be feeling pretty good, don't you think? We're going to talk about that. All right, we're going to show you how we did it. We're going to talk to you about how we did it. We're going to tell you our story in just a few minutes. And we're going to show you some of the science behind what we did. But again, we're not scientists. I'm going to show you book. And you will get a recommended reading list. I don't know, we have that today?
We do.
Okay, good. I'm going to give you a recommended reading list. And you know what? I don't give it to you to just give it to you. Go get those books. They're really important to your health. This is the book that started it all for us. It's called Diabetes Solution. This is my third edition of this book, and I understand that November the 1st he's coming out with another book. You can see there's a few bookmarks. So this one will tell you some of the science behind what we're talking about. There's another wonderful book called, and again, this will be on the list, Good Calories, Bad Calories by Gary Taubes. And he is a science writer for the New York Times, and he wrote this book because he researched this problem. And that will, Good Calories, Bad Calories is something like a 600-page book. And it is very in-depth. And if you love research, it's a great book to read. If you don't like research and you get really bogged down in it, read his next book, which was Why We Get Fat and What to Do About It. It was written more for the lay person, the next book. Again, we're going to talk more about that. See, I told you this is going to come up. Always check with your physician before beginning any weight loss, exercise program, or lifestyle change in any way, shape, or form. What I'm telling you here tonight should be taken to your doctor. And let me just say this. If any of your doctors want to talk to me, I'd be more than happy to go and talk to them. Cost you an arm and a leg. No, just kidding. All right, our story. We finally are getting to our story. This is Dick and I and our 5 children. Oh, they make me cry every time I see it. We were very young when we got married. And so we enjoyed our children growing up because we were just kids ourselves. I was 19, he was 21. And as somebody figured out here, we just celebrated our 51st wedding anniversary on October the 15th of this year. So it's been a great ride. Dick was always very helpful. Again, we were just kids. So he would be playing with the kids. On a Saturday morning, he's an early riser, always has been. I got to tell you a quick aside on this one, okay? We get married in 1960. Now that was the day before anybody lived together or anything like that. I didn't know, what this, I mean, he wouldn't even take me on a ride. We'd go on a ride on a Sunday. We'd get to the Pennsylvania line and he'd stop and he'd say, I can't take you across the line. I'm like, why? Because it's a law. I can't take, okay. So I get up on the morning after our wedding and I've got my little hairnet on. You know how you had those bouffant hairstyles, right? So you wanted to make sure you took care of yourself. And I'm laying there in this bed and I wake up and I look up and there's this man standing. Marie, the dawn is breaking. I'm thinking, it's 5 o'clock in the morning. I think I made a big mistake here. I wonder if I can erase what I just did. So he has always been an early riser. So he would get up on a Saturday morning and he would always be out doing, I'd wake up a lot of times on Saturday to the pounding of the nails or something. He was always busy with the kids and with himself. So it was always a great time for us. This is what happened to Dick after diabetes took a hold of him. This was about 20 years after. When he came home at around 41 years old and said to me, Mary, I've got diabetes, I thought, so? I mean, take care of yourself. Take your medicine. You'll be fine, I just didn't know. I really didn't know. And so this is about 20 years into the diabetes, right? Something like that?
Yeah.
Something like that. Mm-hmm. July of 2002. Dick was this was taken at Cedar Point. It was a very hot day. And he had neuropathy so bad. Anybody know what neuropathy is? Somebody give me a... Doris.
Numbness in your feet, in your hand. I have it.
Yes. It hurts. Neuropathy is really horrible, and Dick had it so bad he couldn't walk 75 feet before he had to sit down and rest his feet. He was miserable all the time. He'd go to bed at 7 o'clock, 7:30 at night. But before he'd go to bed, I'd see him. He'd get up from the couch or whatever, and he'd be pacing. And I'd be, uh-oh, it's bothering him again, right? I'm going to bed, I'm going to bed. So he had neuropathy, really awful. It was, one of the things we loved to do together was go shopping. We just enjoyed that. So we'd go shopping together, and we'd start to walk down the aisle, and he'd get halfway down the aisle of any store, turn around, look at me, I got to go back to the car, I can't. So he had neuropathy. He was on 43 units of insulin by this time a night. The doctor said to him, Dick, there's nothing more I can do for you. I've tried everything. You're on metformin, you're on all these different things. You need to go and see the dietitian, nutritionist, and the endocrinologist. So I went with Dick, and the nutritionist told us all about carbohydrates and how many he should eat, and she was giving him something like 15 a day or something like that. And then the endocrinologist started him on insulin, and I think it was like 5 or 10 units when he started. A year and a half later, he was on 43 units a night. He was totally miserable. He could do nothing. He was always tired. I'm just checking my notes here. Could not exercise, unable to walk, was on pain medication for the neuropathy. I believe it was naproxen. Really strong medication. I remember one particular Saturday I came over by him and I said to him, he was sitting on the couch. It was about 10 or 11 o'clock, and I sat down next to him and I said to him, you know, Dick, what do you want to do today? What are your plans for today? And he had the remote in his hand and he said, I'm already doing it. Okay. So I said, well, you know, the doctor said that if you exercise and lose weight, you'll probably lose the diabetes. And I will never forget my dear, wonderful husband looking at me with this incredulous look on his face, very full of anger, and said to me, I can't even walk, and you want me to exercise? What about this don't you understand, woman? So I just walked away. What can you do? So he was pretty miserable. This is another shot of him. And the last shot. What happened is, and to this day, people, I don't know where I got this book from, the Diabetes Solution book. I don't know. It was next to my nightstand. I picked it up one night, I started to read it, and I went, oh my God, this is my husband. They're talking about my husband in here. Matter of fact, he was snoring next to me, and I gave him a good, and I said, they're talking about you. Took me about another 6 or 8 months to convince him about that we could do something. But when we did, well, the man you see in front of you today this is what happened. This is February of 2004, about 4 months after starting our program. He completely came off of insulin. The neuropathy has gone away. He hasn't taken neuropathy medicine in probably, 6 years, something like that, 7 years, something like that. The doctor is totally amazed. He lost 80 pounds. As a matter of fact, I have to tell you something really cute. He said to me when he was losing this weight, he said, because he had tried and tried and tried to lose weight, and it just wasn't happening. So he said to me, Mary, I'm losing weight so fast. Do you think I'm sick? I said, no, I think you're getting better. It was wonderful to have him back, that's for sure. And this is another after picture. You can see there's a huge difference. And he was in 2 5K races within about a year or 2 years after losing all this weight and getting rid of the neuropathy. He goes to the gym 3 times a week and walks 2 miles each time. We go swimming. Our lives are totally changed. That's how I know yours is going to change. Ours totally changed. And I love that picture of him. When I met Dick, he told me that he played the saxophone at Benedictine's band. I never heard it. In 40 years of marriage, I never heard it. After he went and lost all this weight and got rid of this insulin and everything else, he said to me one night, I'm going to join the New Horizons band out of Baldwin Wallace College. I'm going to play my saxophone. Really? This is great. The man came back alive. I mean, you can see it's just amazing transformation. And that's what I want to do for you. I want you or your loved one to feel as good as he feels, as good as we feel, because I do the same thing he does. Just because you don't have diabetes doesn't mean you shouldn't be doing what we're doing, and I'll show you why. But this is a picture of our 50th wedding anniversary, our grown children now, and our 13 grandchildren. By the way, these are Bob's. 3 of the cutest little guys and gal you ever saw in your life. But again, this is what we're going to be showing you. We want to change your life. This is more of a dialogue than a lecture, even though I've been talking and talking. What I want you to do is, if you have any questions, raise your hand or just ask it. We'll be happy to see what we can do and help you. And here's the thing. We all learn from each other. I learned from others. If somebody asks a question here, there may be somebody sitting next to you or that said, gee, I wanted to ask that question. I'm glad that person asked. So please feel free to do that. We're here for each other tonight. I wanted to tell you some of the joys that we have experienced besides all this wonderfulness. We've also been asked to speak at all these different organizations, and one of the best ones, not the best one, but one of the most exciting was we got a call from Dr. Marsh at the Ohio State University School of Medicine. He had heard about our story because we were coming to see Gary Taubes, the science writer. And gosh, all I wanted to do was just get a seat in the back of the room and just sit there and listen to Gary Taubes speak, because I admire his writing so much. And when I told them why we were coming, they asked us if we would do the opening talk for Mr. Taubes and talk about being blown away. They said, when we read your story, we really want you to do that. And by the way, it's on YouTube. So if you go on YouTube, you won't find it under Mary the Diabetes Lady, but it should be under Ohio State unless they've taken it down. This was last April or something. So we felt really good about that. And Ohio State School of Medicine is also instituting a program very similar to ours, because they believe in it. And that, to me, is an imprimatur for our program. These are the books that Mr. Taubes wrote, Good Calories, Bad Calories, and Why We Get Fat and What to Do About It. This one, the Good Calories, Bad Calories, is the research. Why We Get Fat and What to Do About It is more of for the layman. And this is our picture with Mr. Taubes. Just kind of cool, I think. Crossroads. Today, right now, you are at a crossroads. You are here. Somehow you are here. Divine intervention, maybe, but you are here. And I feel that it's divine intervention. Let me just say that. You're here for a reason. You're here to make choices now. You're here to decide whether or not you're going to take responsibility for this disease and do what's necessary to fix it for yourself. I mean, if you think that my husband looks great on those pictures, and I'm telling you he feels great, and we feel great, that it is important for you to make that decision. Very important. By the way, we are going to take a 10-minute break in a little bit. Okay, just so you know, in case you have to go to the bathroom or something. But it's very important. And you know, when I talk about divine intervention, I'm going to share something else with you. Yesterday, I went to pick up something from a fellow that I hadn't seen in a while, and he works over at the Cleveland Clinic. And he asked me what we were doing, and I told him. And he said, oh, Mary, he said, you know, a fellow I worked with, he said, just a few weeks ago, passed away from diabetes. I said, oh, wow. He said, yeah, he was only like 55 years old. He said he got an infection in his foot, in his toe, and they had to amputate a couple of toes. And then the wound wouldn't heal. Sound familiar? The wound wouldn't heal. And so about a week later, he got an infection in it. They put him in the hospital. The infection went systemic, and he died a week later. So we're going to talk about some of the things about diabetes. I really want you to sit up and take notice about what it is. Okay, what is diabetes? Anybody here want to tell me what diabetes is? Yes, I can't see your name tag.
Janet.
Janet, thank you, Janet.
Your pancreas is not producing the insulin needed to use up the glucose in your bloodstream.
Okay. Janet said, if you all heard her, that your pancreas, and correct me if I'm wrong, the pancreas is not working and not producing enough glucose to use up enough insulin, rather, thank you. I was just doing that. Okay. No. It's not producing enough insulin to use up the glucose that's coming in your bloodstream. So your pancreas is broken, right? And you're not producing enough. Okay. Anybody else have a definition of diabetes at all? Okay. You're partially right. Okay. It is in the pancreas. And by the way, I don't have any yucky pictures, so I don't want anybody to worry. Oh, is she going to show that? Well, wait, I have one. But I'll warn you before I put it up. Okay, there's your pancreas. You've got beta cells in the pancreas. You've got alpha cells. You've got beta cells. You've got all kinds of good cells. But the beta cells are the most important, and they produce insulin. There are two, I'm going to call them shots of insulin. I can't think of the word. But there are two productions of insulin that go on inside the body. One is insulin that goes on, and it's kind of like it's there. So the minute you put anything into your mouth, it comes out and it takes care of what you just ate. And while it's taking care of that, your pancreas is also busy working and making more. So you've got a reserve. I knew I'd get that word sooner or later. You've got a reserve there that helps you, and then you have to produce new insulin to take care of anything else. And what we were talking about was that it takes care of the excessive glucose in your blood. But the one thing that I would differ with you is that people, it's a very common misconception that especially in type 2 diabetics or in diabetes, that they don't produce enough insulin. That's why the doctor is making me take insulin shots. That's why, I have type 2 diabetes, but I now have to go on insulin because my pancreas is broken and I'm not making enough. Let me just tell you something. You may be just making too much. Oh, I'm seeing light bulbs going off. I love it. What did she say? I'm making too much. Okay, so insulin is secreted, easy for me to say. It's secreted by the pancreas in direct reaction to the amount of sugar, which is carbohydrates, in the food that we are eating. One of the first signs of diabetes, type 2, we're going to talk about type 2 here, is what the doctors will call a metabolic syndrome. Oh, you've got metabolic syndrome going there. You start to get a large tummy, you kind of lack energy, you fall asleep at the drop of a hat, your pancreas is overworked, and the doctor says to you, you have what we call metabolic syndrome, and if you're not careful, you're going to go into diabetes, and you probably are in diabetes already, but. So metabolic syndrome is abdominal obesity, high triglycerides, low HDL, which is the healthy cholesterol, high blood pressure, and high fasting blood sugar. But let's look at the 4 different types of diabetes that we know of. That was the metabolic syndrome. Now what we want to look at is the 4 different types. Type 1 is the type 1 diabetes, used to be called the juvenile diabetes, but it also presents later on in life too. It is very much insulin dependent. You cannot live without insulin. You'd be dead in a very short time, week, 2 weeks, something like that, if you were type 1 and had no insulin. This is where the pancreas is shut down. It is no longer producing insulin. And it is thought to be due to an autoimmune disease. That's what they're thinking that it might be from is an autoimmune disease. Something attacks itself. The body attacks itself and kills the beta cells. Okay, type 2 diabetes is usually an adult onset, although they're seeing much more now in teenagers and young people. It is typically controlled with medication, diet, and exercise, and like Dick, it may need insulin as it progresses. 90 to 95% of adult diabetics have type 2 diabetes, and that's what we're going to be focusing on here in these classes. This works for type 1 too, but we're going to focus on type 2 diabetes. So, as we know, it comes from adult onset, it's controlled with diet, medication, and exercise. And 80% of type 2 diabetes are, yes?
I believe my doctor told me that my cells are resistant to absorbing the insulin.
Yes.
So it's not just a pancreas problem. I believe it's a cell problem.
It's called insulin resistance. Thank you very much, Janice. That's absolutely right. 80% of type 2 diabetics are insulin resistant. And we're going to find out what that is. Janice, do you know what that is?
Do I know what it is?
Mm-hmm.
Just no, not really.
Okay.
I'm not getting, my body isn't getting the nutrition and the energy, I know that.
Exactly right. Exactly right. Your cells need it and they can't get it. We'll just finish this up. The gestational diabetes, it only presents in pregnancy, 24 to the 29th week. 40 to 60 people, women who have gestational diabetes will develop type 2 diabetes sometime within the next 15 to 20 years of their life. You also will develop it if you've had a baby over 9 pounds. Probably within the next 15 to 20 years of your life, you will also develop type 2 diabetes. And my favorite, pre-diabetes. And as you can see, I've got a question. Really? Really? Doctor tells you you have pre-diabetes? You tell that man or that woman, I want to be treated as a diabetic. Do not tell me I have pre-diabetes. Because pre-diabetes is diagnosed when you hit 100 to 126 fasting blood glucose in the morning, okay? It's 100 to 126. They will tell you, oh, you know what? You have pre-diabetes.
Is it fasting?
Fasting blood.
120, 126?
That's what and some doctors will take it up to 140 fasting blood. By that time, you are on the road to nowhere, okay? You are going downhill so fast, it's pathetic. If doctor says to you, I have pre-diabetes, you tell him I want to be treated as a diabetic. We're going to go through some of these statistics. This will be a little bit, but this is very important to lay this foundation because I really want you to know this stuff. Type 2 diabetes is very common. You can't swing a dead cat without hitting somebody with type 2 diabetes. Very serious illness. Remember what I told you when Dick came home and said he had diabetes? I said, okay, so you got diabetes. Duh. I did not know. I did not know how serious it was. And it is very costly. This was printed in the Cleveland Plain Dealer on Sunday, June the 26th of 2011. And it says that adult diabetes cases have doubled worldwide over the past 3 decades. Again, I have to ask the question, fat-free foods, what the heck's going on? How is that possible? Nearly 8%, yes?
Part of the type 2 diabetes increased because they reduced the guidelines where they start type 2 diabetes to from 110 as the max to down to 99 as the max.
Well, you might be right. That I'm not familiar with, to be honest with you. But it also increased because we have never had obesity like we have had now in the last 30 years.
The National Diabetic Association, whoever does it, has reduced the classification
Down. Mm-hmm.
I work for the Cleveland Clinic, and my doctor told me the reason why they reduced it is because they found that people over 126 already start neuropathy and have a lot of problems.
Exactly.
They're trying to get you where you don't have those kind of problems.
Great. That's what I want to hear. That's what I want to hear. That's good news. See, I told you we all learn from each other. That's good news. That's just what we're talking about. You don't, at a 140, 126, you have diabetes and the damage is being done inside your body, and I liken it to termites. Anybody ever see damage done by termites? Anybody? You have?
Yeah,
Tell me about it.
California. Just, it eats it away. It's like,
Do you know it's there?
nope.
How do you know? How do you find out it's there?
Well, when the house starts falling down and you wonder why.
You know,
don't see it though. I mean, you have to almost have a magnifying glass.
we had termites in our home in Garfield Heights. I told my father, I think we have termites. He said, Mary, they only have termites in Florida. They don't have them here. Well, that went on for like 5 years until one day I went to knock on the wall and my knuckle went right through the woodwork. That's why I liken it to termites, because all this damage is going on and you don't know it. It's happening to you. 1.6 million cases and new cases a year, and 57 million have pre-diabetes. So 57 million more people have diabetes, only they're not counting those. Diabetes costs Americans $218 billion annually, which is an increase of 32% since 2002. And it costs us, every American, $700, regardless of your diabetic status. So if you don't have it but your neighbor does, that's a problem. Any questions anybody has? Comments, questions? Okay. Please feel free to interrupt me. Yes?
I used to have my brother-in-law who has diabetes has neuropathy, and his doesn't really go away. I mean, he has a numb foot and leg, and he just deals with it. But I think it's gotten a little better over the past maybe 2 years. But isn't there something to help that?
Oh, we're going to tell you what helps it. We're going to tell you what helps it. Dick's
He
went.
exercises, he eats stir fry all the time. He watches his
I bet he
diet.
eats fat-free too.
He lost weight. I don't know about that.
Dick's pain went from a pain level of, I'm going to guess 10, right, to about a pain level of 1, -1. This is a man where we would go to a friend's house and we'd be there for 20 minutes and he'd be getting up and walking around. And we knew it was his neuropathy. Basically, Dick doesn't have neuropathy anymore, if you really want to look at it. And that's why we're here.
Mary?
Yes.
Excuse me, I just thought I would mention, last year when we were doing these classes, we had a man in there in the class who sat in the back row. And every once in a while, he would get up and he would just walk around behind his seat. And it was because the neuropathy was just killing him.
Mm-hmm.
And he couldn't get his numbers down at all. His numbers were very high, and he was suffering with the neuropathy, and it was just so painful. And that's the way it was for me, that I had to go to bed and go to sleep
Watch your mic.
so that I could get away from it, because that's the only way I could get relief. And I took medication for it, but it didn't help. Well, I shouldn't say it didn't help. It didn't help enough. It was still bad. But I did get rid of it. And by the way, just to go back to what Mary said about, or what is it, Janet? Janet, what is her name?
Janet, right? Janet.
Yeah, what she said about the pancreas doesn't produce enough. I don't take insulin anymore. What happened to my pancreas? Why don't I take insulin? I used to. I used to take a lot.
So if his pancreas was burned out, how could
Right.
that be?
That wouldn't work.
I'm going to tell you about a test that you're going to ask your doctor to give you as we progress in these classes. And this test will show how well your pancreas is working, whether or not it is producing or it isn't. And I'll bet you $4 that it's producing anybody that's diabetic. All right, we're going to continue on because we're going to break in about 10 minutes now for a 10-minute break. We're going to go through now is the complications of diabetes. We've been kind of touching on it here, but I really want to go through this. Make yourself comfortable. This is a long list. Neuropathy is what we were just talking about. Retinopathy, which is blindness. Kidney disease, kidney failure. Heart disease. Foggy brain syndrome, which is the one I told you about, the lady that had our last class had. Charcot foot. skin ulcers, infections, slow wound healing, irritability, which is something very few people think about when they think of that, when they think of diabetes. Night sweats, whoops, went too far. Coma. We are going to talk about in our subsequent classes what you need to do if you are on insulin in any way, shape, or form. I don't care whether you're type 2 or type 1, what you need to ask your doctor for to save your life should you go into a coma. I feel like tune in at 11 and we'll give you the answer. But I need it now. Okay, coma. Anxiety disorders are associated with hypoglycemia, hyperglycemia, which means low blood sugar, high blood sugar, depression, high blood pressure, high LDL cholesterol, which is the lousy cholesterol. And by the way, there is another cholesterol which you always want to check. It's called the VLDL, which is worse for you than the LDL, and we'll go into that later. The low HDL, which is the healthy, which is what you should be having a lot of, it drops. Stroke, extreme fatigue, dry, scaly skin, or heart attack. There is a lot of talk, a lot of theory, really going around about the connection between cancer and diabetes. And it's been my experience in teaching these classes over these years that people who have diabetes are extremely likely to develop a cancer of some sort. Dick's brother was one of them, and we lost him about 10 years ago. Alzheimer's disease. Did anybody hear the newest report? I just love this. About Alzheimer's. Yes, what is it?
Well, just that they think that diabetes is the cause of Alzheimer's.
Yes. Yes. What they're doing now for Alzheimer patients is they are giving them inhaled insulin, and they're seeing remarkable results. You know, diabetes affects every single cell in your body. Every one. That's why this list is so long. Peripheral artery disease, or PAD, if you've seen all the commercials. ED, erectile dysfunction, frozen shoulder, amputation, and death. These are some pretty heavy complications, don't you think? Especially that last one. I love it when they have those commercials on and they say, and it might cause death. What did he say? If I take this medicine, I'm going to feel great, but I'm going to be dead next week. Well, you feel good for a week. Okay. We're going to go through two of them that I've just picked out just to share with you. Irritability. If you are living with a diabetic or you are diabetic, this has happened to you, I guarantee it. This has happened to Dick and I. And I'm going to share, we just bare our soul here, okay? And poor Dick puts up with it. He was so irritable that you could not say good morning to him. He was so irritable that when the children came around, it was like fingernails on a blackboard. He was so tired all the time that when it came time for planning a party, about 2 weeks before, we got 5 kids, 13 grandchildren. Well, that's 13 now, but then we probably had, about 9 or 10. And about 2 weeks before planning a party, I would start to feel real anxious inside. You ever get that where you're like, and I thought, this is very weird. I love having the kids over. I love having parties. What's wrong with me? What I didn't realize is that what was wrong with me is I had lost my partner. He was still there. But I would, because we worked so well together all those years, so I would say to him, Dick, would you mind going and putting up the tables in the Florida room? The kids are, and then I'd be busy and I'd be working around and trying to get the food ready and stuff. And I'd go in the Florida room and the tables were up. There wasn't anything on them. There was no tablecloths, no nothing. So I would go in the living room and say, do you think maybe you could put the tablecloths on for me? Would that be possible? Shut up, I don't have to, kind of. Or this happened a lot. I would ask him to go downstairs and get me something from the basement, and 20 minutes later, I realized I need something else. There were a few expletives deleted where he would say to me, I was just down there. Can't you think of these things when I'm down there? I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to know that I need this, you know. That's the kind of irritability I'm talking about. And it happens very, very often because what's probably going on is your blood sugar is dropping. Your brain is getting a little scrambled. So you need to make sure that this is what's going on. And if you're living with a diabetic, you know what I'm talking about. Okay, one more is Charcot-Foot. Anybody ever hear of Charcot-Foot here? You've heard of it? What is your name? I got to see your name tag. I want to call you by your name. Dana. Okay. What, can you tell me a little bit about what you know about Charcot-Foot?
That it's when the foot just gets debilitated, it just changes shapes and it's really bad.
Really bad. Dana said that when the foot changes shapes and it gets debilitated and it gets really, really bad. And you're very right. You're very right. What happens in Charcot-Foot is you can see the bone breaks here. And because you have neuropathy so badly, you don't know that your bone broke. You can't feel it. You don't know. You continue to walk on it. Then you develop an ulcer. And it is very bad because you're diabetic. You're so diabetic now that you had neuropathy so bad. And this is what we're talking about when we talk about neuropathy. Neuropathy is horrible for you. It's not just uncomfortable. It leads to all these problems and amputation. And by the way, anybody that knows anybody that's ever had an amputation, the rule of thumb is within 5 years, they're gone after an amputation. I don't care whether it's one digit or whatever it's amputated, within 5 years that person passes away. That's why it's important to know what to do about this stuff. Okay, so here we have a normal foot. You can see how the bone is, oops, very normal here. It's got an arch. And here in the Charcot-Foot, the bone is broken. It is, the pieces are sharding and they are cutting up the skin and you don't even know it. And if you want to walk around in a boot like this for the next, 3-4 years, hoping that it will help, I can tell you this, that it's not going to help. And it's very slow wound healing. Okay, we're going to wrap this up. This is the yucky picture. I promised you I would tell you, okay? This is the yucky picture. This is a diabetic foot and ankle. This is when an ulcer forms, and I'm going to get rid of it right away. And it doesn't have to be this way. It doesn't have to be this way. People have been asking me about the frozen shoulder. And I just wanted to talk just a minute about that because we...
I just slept on it wrong.
Yeah. What happens in diabetics, and you'll see that as we talk about all of this and you're getting all this background here, is that the shoulder, the joint, becomes glycated, which means that the glucose is stuck because glucose is sticky and it just gets stuck and it sticks everything else to it. And if you're not using that shoulder and giving it range of motion every day, pretty soon that sucker is going to just bind up, seize up, and you can't lift your arm further than this. Okay? And the frozen shoulder is a real difficult situation. Do you have it, Muriel?
You get rid of it after you get it?
Yes. Definitely can get rid of it. Number one, with our program. Number two, with some physical therapy. And one of the things that we're going to talk a lot about is exercise, that dirty word. Exercise. But you know, you feel so great after you come home from the gym. You really, really do. So that was the answer for the question on frozen shoulder. Yes, it can be eliminated. You don't have to have frozen shoulder. That's the wonderful part. Same thing with the neuropathy. It can be eliminated. And this is why we're talking about this in our classes, that these things can be reversed. I'm going to digress from my presentation for just a second. I'm going to tell you a little bit about this Dr. Bernstein. In the front of his book are testimonials of people who have had diabetes, who have had diabetes, and what happened to them, how bad they were. And I'm just going to give you Dr. Bernstein's story. And I'm going to give you a recommended reading list, and this is the top one on the list, okay? We have the recommended reading list with us, don't we?
Right here, honey.
Okay, so we're going to give that out as you're leaving. Don't forget to pick one up. Dr. Bernstein is a type 1 diabetic. He was type 1 since he was 12 years old. He followed the American Diabetes Association diet and regimen, and that was back in the early 60s. Matter of fact, his doctor was at one time the president of the American Diabetes Association. Dr. Bernstein is also an engineer by trade, and his wife is a physician. When they first came out with glucose monitors, which really blew my mind because I didn't realize that they didn't come out with glucose monitors until like 70, 71, where you could get otherwise you just had to go to your doctor and get checked. And then there are some people who have glucose monitors and don't check their glucose. So, but he got, because you couldn't get one, his wife got one for him, and it was $600, and he said it weighed about 6 pounds. See how good we have it and we don't even realize it? So what Dr. Bernstein did is he approached diabetes from the standpoint of an engineer, with the mind of an engineer. Said, you know what, if I do this, my numbers start to come down. If I do that, I'm feeling better. He went to his doctor. He told his doctor. His doctor said, you don't know what you're talking about. You're not a doctor. Dr. Bernstein got so bad, and you'll see it in this book. Read it in this book, won't see it. That's television, you see it, no. I just have to do that so I watch it. People who smile, I know are listening to me. Okay, you'll read in this book that he got so bad he was near renal failure, which means his kidneys were beginning to shut down. He had neuropathy so bad, everything was just really horrible. You want to talk about irritability? Dr. Bernstein will tell you in this book how when his wife, who's a physician, would see that his blood sugars were going low, so she'd offer him a glass of orange juice to try to pick it up. He threw the glass of orange juice at her because in his mind, he thought she was trying to kill him. You know I'm diabetic. You know I can't have orange juice. This is how a diabetic's mind can work. You lower that blood sugar, it's not getting to that brain anymore. And things are going a little nuts, okay? So Dr. Bernstein wrote a paper on it, did all kinds of good things. They wouldn't publish it. So at 45 years old, this man went back to school to become a doctor. He said he didn't even know if he would live through the medical school because he was so bad. And fortunately, he is now 77 years old, one of the oldest living diabetics, and he still works at, it's in, what is the name of the place that he lives in? Mamaroneck?
Mamaroneck,
Thank you.
New York.
I can never say that name. Mamaroneck, New York. And every month, Dr. Bernstein puts on a free webinar, and I listen to it faithfully. You can send in your questions to him, and you get on, and you can do it on the phone, or you can do it on the web, and you can listen to him answer one question after another. And some of the things he talks about is just so fascinating to diabetics. So that is, I wanted to give you a little background on, that's my mentor. That's the guy I would like to meet someday. Some people want to meet Brad Pitt. I want to meet Dr. Bernstein. What can I tell you? I must be. Fasting blood glucose, a normal range of a fasting blood in the morning should be 85 to 90 milligrams per deciliter. An HA1C, which is your hemoglobin A1C, which is taken every 3 months, should be 4.5 to 5.5. And these are normal blood sugar readings. This is what a non-diabetic would have, and every diabetic has the right to normal blood sugar readings. It is what would keep you healthy. Let's look at what causes diabetes. I told you you're going to get an education. We get in more and more into things, okay? Is it hereditary? Is it environmental? Hereditary. I wish I had a nickel for every person that comes up to me and says, I've got diabetes, but you know what? I couldn't help it because it's in my family, so I have to have it. Just because you have the DNA, just because you have the roadmap, doesn't mean you have to get on the road and go down it, right? If you buy the road map, it doesn't say you have to go to Cincinnati. You can go to Chicago if you want. So you don't need to get it because it's hereditary. And yes, it is hereditary, and especially type 1 is hereditary. Is it environmental? That's what I believe. I believe, from my research, that it is very much environmental. Think about it. We say it's in the family, it's in the blood. Hey, the family all sits down to eat the same food. They usually do the same amount of exercise. They usually have the same lifestyle. So is it in the DNA? Well, okay, but I believe it's more environmental. Fat is the demon. That's what we have been all told for the last 30 years. Get rid of the fat, cut it out, don't eat fat, don't eat butter, right? Don't eat butter. You just tell me you had the toast and no butter, that's great. Put the butter on. Don't worry about the butter. Okay, well, if you want the butter, put on the butter because that's so important. Fat-free foods, fat-free foods. Guess what they put in?
Sugar and salt.
When they take out the fat, they put in the sugar, otherwise you might as well eat that table because that's as much of a taste as it's going to have for you. Gee, isn't that interesting? They took out the fat, they put in the sugar, and we've had obesity ever since. Very interesting. Now, if fat was the demon, and it constantly, if we ate fat, and it made us fat, tell me, what is he feeding those cows and calves? Why isn't he feeding them fat, oils, lard? Why is he feeding them grain? And I'll bet it's whole grain too, because everybody says, oh, but I eat whole grain. I don't care if you eat whole grain. It's still grain. And it's still going to make you fat. I'd rather see you pick up 2 pieces of bacon and eat that, or 4 sausages and eat that, because it's better for you than whole grain is. I told you I was going to blow your minds, and I'm seeing light bulbs going off again. Fat is not the demon. Yes, Muriel?
Is sugar the demon?
Yeah, you got it. Give that lady a cigar. Glucose, aka sugar, is the demon. It is what puts fat on you. And I'm going to show you how that happens. Insulin's job is to store things. It stores things. It stores glucose in the blood cells. And when it can't store it there anymore, it stores it in the fat cells. And it won't let you lose weight. So when Dick was taking 43 units of insulin on top of the insulin he was producing, and he ballooned up to 280 pounds, is there any wonder? Too much insulin. Too much insulin. So who is the hero? I love that shot. Insulin is probably our hero, but it can also turn into our villain. If we don't know what it's for, if we don't understand insulin, what it does and what it means to our bodies, it can kill us. And we'll just keep putting more insulin in and more insulin in, thinking that we should be losing weight. How come I'm ballooning up? What it's called is called hyperinsulinemia. I can't pronounce that word very well either, but hyperinsulinemia. It's too much insulin in the bloodstream. Insulin is the main hormone of the body. It takes 5 to 6 other hormones to counteract the effects of insulin. It is so strong. It produces insulin is produced in the beta cells of the pancreas, and it responds to the amount of carbohydrates coming into the body. Insulin is the vehicle that transports the glucose to these blood cells. And as we all know, glucose provides energy. You ever hear, give those kids a candy bar and they won't sit down, you know? Yeah, for about 5 minutes until it crashes. and then they'll sit down all right. So glucose provides all the energy to all the cells in the body, but guess what? The cells can only use a certain amount. They can't use all the carbohydrates, all the insulin that we're pushing on it. I think I told you that when we started this, I got my MRS degree in 1960. And when Dick would sit down to chicken paprikash, butter rings, kolachkis, you name it, pigs in the blanket, spaghetti and meatballs, and he would look at me and go, "Oh, Mary, this is so good. You are such a good cook." I was, and I was killing him. The man enjoyed eating, and I loved cooking for him. But we can only take in so many carbohydrates. The body can't use them all. And we keep shoving them in, and now we have fat-free foods that is adding even more. The old boogeyman high fructose corn syrup, easy for me to say, high fructose corn syrup. Insulin has to take that glucose somewhere. When the cells refuse it, it's got to go. It's got to go somewhere. I knew I should have got a drink during the break. Okay, the insulin's got to take that glucose somewhere, and guess where it takes it? Mainly in the abdominal region of the body. That's why you see so many people walking around with triplets.
On some of these shows and in some of these magazines, they say if you have abdominal surgery, your diabetes will go away.
What they're talking about is probably the bariatric surgery. Yes, your diabetes will go away, provided that you stay with what you're supposed to be doing. You know what? We want a pill, don't we? We want a magic wand. Matter of fact, I forgot my magic wand. I was going to bring it and sprinkle it all over you, because that's what everybody wants. I want that pill. I want bariatric surgery. Jeez Louise, people, do you know what you're asking for? That is ridiculous. I'm sorry, but it's just ridiculous. There's a better way of doing it, and I wish the doctors would show you this way. But there's a better way of doing this.
Mary,
Yes.
the lap band surgery's been discontinued at UCLA because it's causing deaths.
Wow.
Just got a report.
Thank you for sharing that, Joan Marie. I did not know that. Joan Marie said that the lap band surgery has been discontinued at UCLA because it is causing too many deaths. So we don't have a magic pill. I don't have one for you, but I do have information that is going to help you, and it's going to change your lives. We're going to look at fats and proteins and carbohydrates. These are the main nutrients in our foods. The one nutrient that we're going to center on and focus on is carbohydrates. And you may hear me call it carbs. Dick and I have a disagreement about this, but so you may hear me call it carbs. All right, what is carbs? What is carbohydrates? I'm sorry. What is carbohydrates? Sugar. Carbohydrates break down in the body as glucose. The minute you put that piece of white bread to your mouth, the minute you take that bite of mashed potato or baked potato, your pancreas is signaled, and it starts sending, because that's sugar. That is so much sugar. I used to think, oh, I had a baked potato at Brown Derby or whatever. I'm doing good. Not so. Most people think of carbohydrates as this. We have to think of carbohydrates in this way. Breads, raisins. Oh, I love raisins. Do you know that 1/8 of a cup of raisins is 1 carb? And we're going to get into that. It's huge. They're so sweet. Did you ever think of this as being sugar? No, you probably didn't. How many people have this kind of like as their regular breakfast, or have something similar to it? Something similar to that? Be honest. Come on, I'm being honest with you. Good. All right. Let's look at this breakfast. Let's break it down. Cornflakes, 1.5 cups, 36 grams of carbs. Down here you'll see this is the amount. This is the amount of carbohydrates. Milk, 1 cup, 12 grams. Orange juice, 8 ounces, 30 grams. We don't have a slice of toast on there, but we're going to pretend, because 1 slice of toast, 15 grams. Jam and jelly, 1 tablespoon, 15 grams. A cup of black coffee. You can have as much as you want. And, you know, just for the heck of it, we want this person to put a little bit of sugar on that. Dick used to eat this kind of a breakfast, and I'd say to him, well, you sure you should eat that? I put equal on my cereal. Okay. Let's find out what you're eating. Total grams of carbohydrates is 116 grams. 4 grams of carbohydrates in every teaspoon of sugar. Total teaspoons of sugar in that breakfast was 29 teaspoons of sugar. And you put equal on your cereal. This is what we eat every day. We eat bacon and eggs, strawberries, fresh usually, Dick has frozen, a few blueberries, and because we're over 50, a prune. Got to keep it regular. Okay, so let's see how much we ate in terms of carbohydrates. Scrambled eggs was, 2 of them was 0. Bacon was 3 strips, 0. Strawberries, 2 berries, about 5 grams. Blueberries, a 1/4 cup, 5 grams-ish, maybe a little bit more. Coffee, unlimited, and a prune, 5 grams.
What does the bacon do to your cholesterol?
Ah, wait.
Yeah.
That's news at 11, okay? Keep that one in mind. Let's find out how many grams of carbohydrates we eat every morning. 15 grams. Wow, it's a little bit different, isn't it? Now we said 4 grams of sugar. So we eat a total of 4 teaspoons of sugar in our breakfast as opposed to 29. And while I was doing this, I just had to go to McDonald's. I mean, photographically. McDonald's dinner, a Big Mac, is 45 grams. Now, isn't this interesting? There's 45 grams of carbohydrates only in a Big Mac, and it's all in the bread. Yes. You could take that meat out, and you could eat that, and you'd have no problem. Well, you would have a problem. French fries, 1 large, is 63 grams. A large Coca-Cola is 86 grams, and a chocolate shake, only a 16-ounce cup because they do have a bigger one, is 119 grams. And Dick argued with me this afternoon. He said, well, he didn't argue. He discussed it. Dick discussed with me this afternoon that if you had a Coca-Cola, you probably wouldn't have a shake. And I said, I've seen my boys have Coca-Colas and shakes at the same time, so I'm going to put it in. Total grams of carbohydrates in that meal, 313 grams. 78.25 teaspoons of sugar. Exactly. 78 teaspoons of sugar. Yikes. Okay, one more, just had to do it. This is their breakfast menu, the big breakfast with the hot cakes and a regular biscuit, 116 grams. Orange juice is 16-ounce cups is 39, and coffee is unlimited, 155 grams. Oh, this is better. It's only 38 teaspoons of sugar. Again, you have hyperinsulinemia, too much insulin in the bloodstream. It's pumping out, it's trying to keep up with all this sugar. It's like going nuts, trying to, and then you're overworking that pancreas, and it'll burn out. You only have so much work that pancreas can do. Eventually, it will burn out. But you have to be very careful. So you see what I'm trying to say about sugar versus fat at this juncture? This is how the vicious circle begins. Fat is stored, blood pressure rises. This is just what we talked about with the metabolic syndrome. That's why you're going into the metabolic syndrome, and the next thing really is diabetes. This one I love, because when I read this and when I researched this, I was amazed about this. How do cells respond to that insulin that is coming into us? Let's look at the non-diabetic cell. So you got the blood cell, and then inside the blood cell is all this hemoglobin. It's really made up of hemoglobin. And you have, on every blood cell, you have receptors. So what's going to happen? The insulin is going to bring the glucose to the billions of blood cells in your body because the hemoglobin needs it for energy. Got to have, remember we talked about how the glucose gives you energy, gives you the ability to run and all that. So now glucose is going to be transported by insulin into the cell. Don't forget, this is a non-diabetic body. So there it goes, took it in, Receptors were wide open. It allowed that. And what they talk about is that the insulin is like a key. It opens up those receptors because they usually lay, they're just, again, they just lay flat on the. We are now talking about, who talked about insulin resistance, didn't know what it was? Was that you, Janice? Didn't know what insulin resistance was?
Well, I know what it is. The sugar doesn't go into the cell. The energy isn't given.
Let's look at that, okay? Insulin resistance. This is an insulin-resistant type 2 diabetic person. Same receptors, same hemoglobin, the whole bit. Receptors will not allow the glucose to come in. It needs it desperately. That's why you're tired. That's why you fall asleep at the drop of a hat. That's why Dick fell asleep at the wheel driving on 480 and hit the median strip. He was lucky. He was very lucky. He only blew out the tire.
But I could have.
That's why you fall asleep with the drop of a hat. So what happens? We said that the body hates glucose. It's got to take it somewhere, and it does. The body takes, the insulin goes right to the fat cells, and it fills up the fat cells, and the fat cells accept it all, and it just keeps getting fatter and fatter. And it is usually in the abdominal region. Okay, we're going to talk about how to count your carbohydrates. Very important factor. Again, always check with your physician before you begin any kind of change in your diet, your exercise, or medications. Do not just do this randomly. You need to talk with your doctor. He or she is the only one who can help you. But I just want to make sure that you have the knowledge now to go and talk to your doctor. Whereas when I saw these light bulbs going off, I knew there were a lot of people, this is the first time they're hearing this stuff. 15 grams of carbohydrates equal 1 carb. And that's why when you saw it was 113 grams or whatever. You can think about how we group items. You can say 12 eggs equal a dozen, 16 ounces equal 1 pound. We group these items in that way. What we have to think about is 15 grams equals 1 carb. This could be.
Is that on a label?
Good question. That's coming up next. Matter of fact, let me just see here. Okay, you can also think of 15 grams equal 1 point, if that's what you choose, because when the nutritionist told us this back at UH about, 8-10 years ago, whatever it was when we started there, she used carbs and carb and that kind, and it is a little confusing. So if you think of it as 15 grams equal 1 point, kind of borrowing something from Weight Watchers, I guess, don't tell them. But that's how you get it. Okay, the nutrition labels that we have are on all the packaged foods that we have. Every packaged food that you get has a nutrition label on it. There are only 2 important items on the nutrition label as far as I'm concerned. One is the serving size, and the other is the grams of carbohydrates. Now what you're looking at is a nutrition sheet from Cheerios. All right, now follow along with me. Look at the screen first, okay? The one thing that you're going to look at first on that paper is the serving size. That's the first thing you look at on your nutrition sheet. It says 1 cup. 1 cup, not 3. Or like when I picked up a can of Campbell's soup and I saw it only had like 8 grams of carbs, and I went, oh, 2.5 servings in there. That's for only a half a cup, right? So you need to watch that serving size is 1 cup. The next thing you're going to look at after you see the 1 cup, you're going to look straight down here like our arrow is pointing to and look for the total carbohydrates. So what this nutrition sheet that you have in your hand and that I have on my screen is telling us that 1 cup of Cheerios has 22 grams of carbohydrates in it. The dietary fiber down here, almost invariably I get asked about that. Well, can't you subtract that? Yes, you can. We don't do it. I don't recommend it. it's not that important. So 1 cup of Cheerios has 22 grams of carbohydrates in it. That equals about 1 and a little point, right? So now we understand it? Everybody? Yes, Elaine?
As you go down, it says other carbohydrates, 18.
No, the only thing we look at, and we've done this for 9 years, okay? The only thing you're looking at is the serving size and the total carbohydrates.
So that other one has no bearing on.
Nothing. Has nothing to do with what you're doing.
18 is part of the 22.
Right.
I don't even look there, so I couldn't even tell you. I've never done it.
Yeah, if you add the dietary fiber plus the sugars plus the other carbohydrates, the total is 22.
Okay, that's what it, okay.
Okay?
I thought this was in addition.
It's different kinds
Thank you.
of carbohydrates.
Okay, okay.
I'm glad he cleared that up for you. That's why I bring him along. My mathematician. All right, so what we want to do is find the exact serving size for each food. When you go to eat something, you look on those labels. And let me just tell you something. We're going to get into this in the next couple of classes, but be very careful. When it says sugar-free cookies, do they have it on there? Oh,
Yeah.
wonderful. Okay, give me one of those. Okay, we're going to do this right now. Do you have one, honey?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so you just look, and the cookies on the next page are regular, and I used to love these cookies. Oh, God, they melt in your mouth. The first one is the Wortman's chocolate wafers, and if you look down, the serving size, see under the nutrition facts, everybody with me? It's the serving size is how many cookies? 3. Okay, and what are the total carbohydrates? 20. So there are 20 grams of carbohydrates in 3 of these cookies, right? Turn the page over, and now you've got sugar-free cookies. Wow! You can eat as many as you want, right? Okay, what's the serving size here? 3. What is the total amount of carbohydrates? 17. Gee, we saved a whole 3.
Isn't it interesting that there's 17 grams of carbohydrates and it says they are no sugar?
Yeah.
Think about that. They're sugar-free, but they're 17 grams of carbohydrates. Then they're not sugar.
They're not sugar-free. I love when you go into, we were just talking about Amish country. Oh, love that place. You go into one of those places, you go into any bakery. What do they have? Sugar-free pies. So you didn't use any flour when you made those pies? You didn't put any fruit in that apple pie? You didn't do anything like, you didn't put any thickening agent in it? It's not sugar-free.
A
Yes.
lot of times it says no sugar added.
Yes.
It's a big misconception for people.
That's right. As Dr. Bernstein says, if you put a fat-free or a sugar-free label on your cookies, it'll be taken off the shelves like crazy. They'll go like mad because everybody... Dick used to bring home sugar-free cookies all the time. Look, I found sugar-free cookies.
Well, what does this mean?
I'm sorry, somebody asked me a question. What?
What does this mean then on that same page where it says net carbs, 3 grams per cookie?
Yeah, how about that?
How are they figuring that
How
out?
about that? Well, they're probably trying to subtract dietary fiber and the whole bit, and they want to kid it down to 3. And it's not. Yeah, there's no fiber. That's just a big marketing ploy. You've got 17 grams in 3 cookies, period.
So when I went to the doctor a couple months ago and I went to a nutritionist, and here, say these Cheerios. All right, I think she made off to me like you should have 35 grams for breakfast, 15 for a snack, then like 35. So I was counting this 22 grams plus whatever it said on my milk.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right?
Right. That's exactly what you need to do. Except you might be eating way too much, but
But what's this 1 carb then? What am I supposed to?
15 grams. Believe me, this is every class is like this, okay?
Maybe I could explain.
Please do.
What you have to count is the total number of carbs from whatever food it is that contributes to that. In other words, you got to count the milk because it
Yeah.
has carbohydrates in it too. So when they say, well, Cheerios only has X number of carbohydrates, that's true. But you don't eat it that way. How many of you eat dry Cheerios? Kids do, okay? But most of the time, you
Katie?
add something to it. You add milk to it. Okay, well, then you gotta count the milk. You did the right thing.
Yes.
You add the milk and the Cheerios carbs together, and that's how many you've eaten.
So I do count this 22 grams with, but
With
then
milk.
why am I doing the 15 grams equal 1 carb?
That's only
Okay.
a way to,
You're going to decide how many points, we're going to call it points from here on in. You're going to decide how many points you're going to have in a given day.
Okay,
yeah.
that's what I want.
You're going to decide how many points you're going to have in a given day.
If I told you that you should only eat 5 points worth of carbs every day, how many grams of carbohydrates should you have?
75.
Another
Correct.
mathematician.
Correct.
See, so that's how it is. Thank you, that is very good. That is very good. Yes,
Is carbohydrates is only made up from sugar? Is there any other form that makes,
carbohydrate?
that's a carbohydrate?
No, carbohydrates is any starch, any flour, any potato,
Okay, and that's where the 17s come from.
because of the flour that they put in there.
Sugar, so it's
Right, but they put flour in it.
Yeah.
It isn't going to hold together if they don't have flour in it, right? So, yeah. Yes,
How many carbs, how many points is it the same for everybody?
no, good question. She wanted to know how many points should everybody eat, or is it the same amount of points for everybody in a given day? No. And when people ask me, well, Mary, how many should I eat? I tell them I don't know. Because I don't know. Because everybody is an individual, and you have to decide. And how did we decide? We decided because they had Dick on like 14 or 15 points a day. So 15 times 15 is 15 times 15 is, you get a free DVD if you give me the answer.
225.
All right, 225, okay? So she had him on that many, which was way too many. So what we did is we said, okay, let's pick a number. You're on 14, let's go down to 9 and see what happens. And that's what you need to do. You need to look at what you've been eating, count up the points, the grams of carbohydrates, how many points those equal, and then say to yourself, well, I've been eating 20 points a day. I think I'll take it down to like 14, see what happens. And what you do is you stay with that for 2 weeks. You stay with that number for 2 weeks, and you watch what's going on with your blood sugars, and you watch what's going on with your weight, and even cutting just that little bit out, I'm telling you, you're going to see this difference. You can then, if it's not doing what you want it to do, with your doctor's advice, everybody heard me, right? With the doctor's advice, you can then take it down some more. Take it down a couple of more points. We eat now when we want to make sure that we've gone up a little in weight. We want to get it down. I'll eat 3 points a day, and Dick will eat around 5. So that is 5 points will give you 75 grams of carbohydrates in a day. And I can't change your lives, but I can sure give you information that will start you down that road. I want you to be able to question your doctors. And the one thing you'll hear me say throughout these classes as well is question everything. Everything the doctor tells you, I want you to ask him why. Why? And I'll get into that later. Let's see if we can finish this up. The grams of carbohydrates, find the exact amount for each serving size. Measure, measure, measure. That's we bought extra serving things. What do you call measuring cups? Remember, and put them on the table and stuff. Because you don't just say, well, I think that's a quarter of a cup. No, don't come to me and say it isn't working. Okay. The pancreas responds to the nutrients. I'm going to show you this as fast as I can. This is how the pancreas responds when fats come in. Nothing. It doesn't respond to fats. So no insulin is pumped out when you eat something fat. Bacon, steak, sausages. I don't care what it is. And by the way, your brain needs fat. So no insulin is pumped out into your system. And what you're trying to do, the end result of all of this is try to bring this all back into balance, okay? You're trying to make sure that you eat less carbohydrates so that your body has a chance to keep up with the carbohydrates. All right, let's look at real quick the protein. Okay, when you eat protein, you have a little insulin pumped out. Okay, and as soon as it hits the portal vein, as soon as it hits your mouth, the liver is letting the pancreas know, and here it comes. Also, protein contains a certain amount of carbohydrates. You can't think of them that way, but a certain amount of sugar, but it's very, very slow acting. And please don't ask me about the glycemic index because I don't believe in it, but the protein, the carbs in protein take a lot longer, okay? That's how the protein, and then when you have carbohydrates, you have a flood of insulin coming in. See why it's so important to watch your carbohydrates, to know about carbohydrates, and don't worry about the fats. We eat so much fat in our house, and look at him. Look at me, I lost 40 pounds for crying out loud on the same thing. And I follow the same diet and same exercise plan because guess what? It's good for all of us. All of us. Okay, we're just about done. Hypoglycemia, hyperglycemia. I am telling you that if you are here and you are on any kind of insulin, you start to do what Mary says without your doctor's advice, and your blood sugars are going to fall if you're taking insulin. And they're going to fall bad. I'm giving you that warning. Do not do that. Talk to your doctor. Now, we were fortunate because when we talked to Dick's doctor, he said, you know what you're doing. You can lower your insulin levels as you see fit. So we were able to go down in increments that we felt was healthy for us. Hyperglycemia is way too much, sugar, and we need to make sure that what happens there, and as I told you, there's things I want to tell you all about that. Okay, my next is a clock, and this does not mean the time is up. Now that I think about it, it certainly looks like it, doesn't it? Okay, this says you don't have the time. You don't have the time or the luxury to play with this disease. I think I have given you a lot of information today. It's going to be really need to be digested. But what I tried to show you is what diabetes is, what it isn't, and what are the horrible effects that you, if you have type 2 diabetes, will be suffering. I can guarantee you. Just think of that poor man at the clinic who just got an infection in his toe, and he is dead, like 4 weeks later. You are at a crossroads. You need to make a decision. And one of the decisions, I hope, will be that we will see you back here next week at 6 o'clock, and let us continue this wonderful dialogue. Thank you all very much. Good evening, good evening. It's so good to see you all back here again, especially on this beautiful day. Wasn't it absolutely gorgeous today? How many of you got out to enjoy the... Oh, great, great. Just enjoying that foliage was just... I know they're going to fall, and I know they're going to be a mess to clean up, but the leaves are just beautiful, and we need to take advantage of all the wonderful things in our lives, right? I mean, I think that's very, very important. All right, today what we're going to do is we're going to, if anybody have any questions about last week at all? Oh, wonderful. We're going to do a quick review about last week, just to make sure that you got it. And, excuse me, oh, Bob, I'm sorry. It's probably in your ear. I want to do a quick review of last week, get through it, and make sure there are no questions. Because this stuff sometimes can be a little difficult to wrap your mind around, and it comes at you pretty fast. So let's look at what we were talking about, how we beat diabetes. And by the way, just to clarify, when we say how we beat diabetes, what we beat were the horrible effects of diabetes. Dick came off of insulin. He reduced his neuropathy to practically nothing, no more night sweats, just all these wonderful things. He still has diabetes. He's not cured. He's on his way to being cured. I really believe that. He needs to lose another 20 pounds and we'll be there. No, but I just want you to be aware of that we still have to be very careful, and we watch as well. So just to make absolutely certain that this is for education only. We are not designed to diagnose or treat any illness. I will answer any question I can, but your doctor is always your best resource. What regulates the fat tissue is insulin. Insulin holds the fat in the fat tissue, it brings it into the fat tissue, and it keeps it there. So that is where, like I said last week, insulin can be our villain or our hero. So we did prove by reading Gary Taubes' book. By the way, how many of you, and I talked to some people and they said that they went out and got the books. Please show me by raising your hand who went out and got books. I love it because the whole thrust of this is, look, I'm giving you information, but this is your responsibility. I'm starting you out on this path. I'm telling you what worked for us. Now I want you to seize control, and I want you to read all you can read. I want you to do what I've done and learn all about this disease, and those books will be great, believe me. I love them. They're absolutely wonderful books. This is where Gary talks about the biology of fat. We gain weight because our fat tissue accumulates too much fat. What regulates the fat tissue is the hormone insulin. And we secrete insulin only in response to the carbohydrates in our diet. Only. So how can fat make you fat if insulin is the fat-building hormone and it only secretes when you have carbohydrates? So insulin's job is storage, and it does not allow fat to be burned. This is really, really important. Insulin's job is to store. It's what it does. And it does not allow fat to be burned. We're going to be getting into this a little bit later, but I really want to make this point because think about it. If you're on insulin, you're taking insulin injections, or you're taking meds to enhance your insulin production, so you keep putting more and more insulin into this body, and you can't figure out, why am I getting fatter? When Dick weighed 280 pounds, I had absolutely no idea. The man tried to watch his calories. He would bring home fat-free and sugar-free cookies. And the calorie count in there would say, oh yeah, you could eat, a number of those. So he would watch very carefully. Nothing worked. So besides being so awful to weigh all this weight and to have this diabetes, the fact that you're trying to lose the weight and you can't is so depressing. It's just overwhelming. So that's why I want you to get this. Insulin is a storage hormone. It builds fat and it prevents fat from burning. Today we're going to look at fat-free. This is a fat-free premium saltine crackers, box of premium saltine crackers. And of course we all know, don't we now? What do we look at first? The total amount of serving, okay? What is our serving size? 5 crackers. We look down and we find total carbohydrates. On this package, I don't know if you can see it or not, but it's 13 grams for 5 crackers. This is the fat-free now. So now it's going to be interesting. Let's look at the original, the regular recipe. We'll look at the serving size is 5 crackers. Looking down at the carbohydrates, 11. 13 in the fat-free for 5. 11 in the regular. Why is that? Can anybody tell me why that is? Yes?
They put more sugar in them?
That's right. They take out the fat. Thank you. They take out the fat, and if they didn't put sugar in it, you might as well eat the book. I mean, it will taste like cardboard. It will be nothing. So they have to put something in, and every time they take out the fat, and every time you see something fat-free, people stay away from it. Stay away from it. I would rather you did, let's look at salad dressing. I would rather you ate regular salad dressing, and by the way, poppy seed salad dressing is really high in carbohydrates. I think it's 9 grams to a tablespoon or something like that. But if you look at Hidden Valley Ranch, which is one of my favorites, there's only like 1 gram to a tablespoon in the regular Hidden Valley Ranch. And I really don't know what's in the fat-free one because I stay far away from it. So I would rather you ate the regular stuff, counted those carbohydrate grams, and said, okay, this is how many, because it's going to actually be better for you. Everybody get that? And I will tell you another book that I would really highly recommend, if I can get it out here. Living the Low Carb Life with Johnny Bowden. It is on your list. If you have that recommended reading list, Johnny Bowden is on there. You may have to go to Barnes & Nobles or someplace like that to get it, but this, you can see, is a well-worn book. This book is great. So you wanted to know what I ate today. Okay, what I ate today was I had scrambled eggs for breakfast and some bacon. And I had 2 strawberries, some blueberries, and my prune. Okay. Then I had for lunch, yesterday I made for Dick and I actually Dick made it yesterday, didn't you? You made that roast chicken yesterday, and pretty good too, I must say. We made roast chicken yesterday, so we make more than we need. So the next day we had cold chicken sandwiches. Okay, now you can put it on white bread, wheat bread, rye bread, I don't care which bread you put it on, or better yet, no bread. Just eat it with a salad or something. For myself, I like it with the bread, so I count it. So I had 2 pieces of white bread along with the chicken, and that was 2 points, okay? 1 point for each. My breakfast really didn't have any points to it at all. And then, let's see, I had 4, so what do I, oh, I know. I'm absolutely a chocoholic. Must have my chocolate. Must have it. And if you look on the back of a candy bar, you'll see the grams of carbohydrates. Now, please understand, I am not advocating that you eat chocolate, but what I am saying is that as long as you count it, that's important. And you know what they're saying about dark chocolate. Now, Dick likes the 80%, is it?
85, I think.
85. That's really, really good stuff.
Yeah, that's what I get.
That's the best.
What is the name of that stuff that you get?
Oh.
Do you remember?
Lint, I think.
Lints, yeah.
It's a little bitter, you have to kind of like get used to it.
You have to develop a taste
Right,
for it.
right.
Yes.
My brother's a doctor in California, he told me using anything less than 80 or plus of chocolate.
Yes.
It's Coke, it's basically Coke.
Cocoa, yeah.
I really enjoy it. It really is good, you know. But there's one thing that let's see, how can I best explain this? Mally's, I'm sure you're all familiar with Mally's. Don't go in there. No. If I see any of you in Mally's, no. What am I doing there? Okay, they sell snow caps with the dark. And for years now, I have been addicted to them. I really am. And Bob's oldest boy, John, who is now 5 years old, when he was 3, he came up to his mother one day, and I was there in my kitchen, and he looked at her and he said, "Mommy, can I have a bumpy cookie?" And she looked at me, and I said, "I don't know what he's talking about. Maybe he's talking about chocolate chip cookie or something. What is a bumpy cookie?" So finally she said to him, "John, show me, what is a bumpy cookie? What are you talking about?" Because he said, "No, not that cookie, not." And so he goes into my office and goes into my drawer and pulls out my bumpy cookies, which are my snow caps from Mally's. So now the kids always come over and say, "Can I have a bumpy cookie?" So, I got to keep them in the house for the kids, right? Yeah. But I have 3 of those a day, which are 5 grams. With the way I have figured it all out, 3 bumpy cookies are 5 grams a piece, which is 1 point. So I've had the 2 pieces of bread. I had that, and I also had 2 ounces of Dr. Pepper because I needed to wake up a little bit. So I had 2 ounces and I can't drink diet. So that's where my 4 came in. And what we have learned is that 15 grams of carbohydrates equals 1 point. And everybody gets that now? Am I seeing nods? Everybody gets that.
How many points should you have a day?
Okay, Patricia is asking how many points should you have a day? I have no idea. What happens is you have to figure that out for yourself. Everybody's an individual. I'll tell you, I'm going to give you a kind of for example, I'm going to tell you later on that a low blood sugar is 70 or below, okay? But if your blood sugars are running 200, 250, you may feel like you got low blood sugar at 150. So same thing, if you are like a laborer, you are doing a lot of things, or you're just not used to eating low carb yet, you may feel like you're eating too little. So you just want to count them, just like you're doing, Joan Marie. She knows exactly. So if I come up to you next week and I say, Roger, how many carb points did you have today? You could tell me just like that, right? 9. 9? 9. 9 today. See? Great. Laura, how about you? Okay, no, I'm not going to single you out.
I went to a nutritionalist at the clinic because I work there.
Uh-huh.
I don't know how she detected this, but with my weight and my diabetes and what I'm running, she told me that I was allowed 11
11 points.
Equals 165.
Right.
I don't know how she came to that number, but
Yep.
I'm not allowed to go over 11.
Yep.
11 a day.
They had Dick on 15, 14 or 15, something like that. 14 or 15. He had a sedentary job. He was a computer programmer. At 14 or 15 points, which is 15 times 15, which is 225 grams a day, plus taking insulin, no wonder the man ballooned up to 280 pounds. This is what you will do. You will feel better. You'll start running. Okay, you'll start walking. Or you can choose not to. Remember I told you you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink, and I'm leading you, and I don't know if you'll drink? I'm trying to motivate you. I'm trying to give you education, but you know what? Ultimately, it is your decision to do this or not do it, to ask your doctor about it or not ask your doctor. You can stay on medication if you'd like. You can stay on medication, and you know what? The damage will keep on happening because medication keeps you alive. You have to take it right now. It keeps you alive, but it does not keep you from the damage that is going on inside of you. Is there anybody here that has been taking medication over the years that can tell me that they are actually feeling better because they took such and such a medication? Has it enhanced your lives? Has it given you energy? Has it, unless you're on amphetamines, but has it given you energy? It isn't going to happen. Or you can enjoy life. It's up to you. What we want to do is we want to bring things into balance. This is what we're talking about, is balance. Anybody ever see the movie The Karate Kid? Karate Kid. Great movie, wasn't it? And what was the guy's name that was the guy who...
Mr. Miyagi?
Mr. Miyagi? Mr. Miyagi. What did he talk about always? Balance. You've got to have balance, right? So if you have your checkbook and there's less money in there than there are bills at the end of the month, you're out of what? Balance. You need to bring it into balance. You're out of balance. So this is what we're trying to achieve here, is balance. What we want to do is we want to bring your insulin production down as we bring down your carbohydrates, and so everything balances out eventually. Very important to have balance. And this is what I'm talking about, is bringing all of that into balance. Your bodies are totally out of balance. First of all, if you have type 2 diabetes, your pancreas is probably pumping insulin. Then your doctor is giving you medication so that you can be less insulin resistant and maybe even make more insulin. And then God forbid he's giving you insulin shots, or she's giving you insulin shots besides. You keep pumping all that insulin into you and you are totally out of balance. I truly believe that you get what you focus on. Anybody ever hear of the law of attraction, the power of intention? Yes. Dr. Wayne Dyer talks about the power of intention. You get what you focus on. So if you are a negative person and you focus on negative things happening to you, you're sitting there right now going, Mary is out of her mind. This will never change. I'm always going to be sick. I really don't think this will ever happen for me. It worked for them. It can't work for me. You put that out to the universe, guess what? That's what you're going to get back. It won't work for you. I totally guarantee it. Absolutely. But if you're a positive person and you focus on being healthy and you set goals and you decide that, yes, this is what I'm going to do and I feel good about myself, and you picture yourself as being healthy and you picture yourself as being thin, that you've lost the amount of weight that you needed to lose, and you picture yourself everything going well for you, that's what you will get. How many of you believe what I just said? Good. But it is just like Tigger. You can either be Tigger or you can be Eeyore. How are you going to approach it? How are you going to approach it? You need to set goals and you need to decide that this is what you're going to do. Very important to write these down. Where do you want to be a month from now, 6 months from now, and a year from now? And picture yourself being there and that this will work. You know? Anybody ever see this Reader's Digest? We were talking about bacon and eggs. You ever see this? Did you see this one? Mm-hmm. This was Reader's Digest did an article, a nice article on Gary Taubes' book, Why We Get Fat and What to Do About It. And people cannot believe that you can eat bacon and eggs and be healthy because we've been told, oh, that stuff is really bad for you. It's interesting, I think it's in Dr. Bernstein's books, it's in one of these books, that woman goes to her doctor and the doctor says, you got to lose weight. Man, you are like 100 pounds overweight, you've got to lose weight. So she does some reading and she goes on the Atkins diet. She loses 100 pounds. And over the course of about 6 or 8 months, something like that. And she comes back to the doctor and wow, you lost all this weight, you know? And she says, yeah, and he looks at all of her health markers and he's like, your blood pressure is great, your HA1C is way down, your fasting bloods are, you know, almost normal. This is fantastic. And she said, and he says, I'm just so excited for you. And she said, oh, thank you, doctor. I just feel so wonderful. I really feel great. He said, tell me, how did you do this? And she said, well, I went on Atkins. He said, oh, no, you can't go on that. It'll kill you. Good calories, bad calories. And by the way, I know I said we don't mention calories. This is a very interesting thing. He never wanted to call this book Good Calories, Bad Calories. His publisher made him do it. So it's called Good Calories, Bad Calories, but it has absolutely nothing to do with calories. And he will tell you about Atkins in here and how important he was to controlled carbs and why the man was right. And Atkins was a cardiologist. By the way, this is the book Carbohydrates, Calories, and Fat that Dr. Bernstein recommends, I believe. It is on your list. I believe we have it on your list. I'm sure I do. This one is great. It's got so many different things in it, but the one important thing I want to point out to you is if you get this book or any book like this and you are going to not pay any attention to the calories, you're not going to pay any attention to the fat, please try really hard to do that. I know at first, like I told you, when we sat down to that first bacon and egg breakfast, I was like, oh my God, they're trying to kill us. You want to look at the grams of carbohydrates. A lot of times it'll say carbs in the list, but what they're really talking about is not points. They're talking about grams of carbohydrates. So you want to make sure that you look at that. Would you know, I opened it to meat, which is no grams. Let's see. Okay. An orange, all varieties, raw, peeled in sections, 1 cup. Carbs, 21. They don't mean 21 points, they mean 21 grams.
So that's less than a point, that's a little bit more than a point.
A little bit more than a point. Point and a half, okay? So I want you to pay attention to that, because a lot of people go, oh, I couldn't eat anything because it had 21 points on it.
Mary,
No, no.
can you do orange juice?
Let's see, orange juice, orange juice. I think it might be under something. Orange juice, here we go. Orange juice, canned or boxed, fresh squeezed. Fresh squeezed orange juice, 1 cup, which is what, 8 ounces? 26 grams. So you're almost talking 2 points in a cup, an 8-ounce cup of orange juice. It's filled with sugar, fructose. I always say it's like a miracle, but it's not. What it is what I've been preaching here over and over and over. This is up to you. It is in your control. Don't let it be up to your doctor. He or she has nothing to do with your diabetes or your weight problem. It is up to you. And you know what? We all want that magic pill. We all want it to just go away. If I go to that doctor, it's like when you buy the treadmill for the house and you spend $1,500 on it and you pay it off and you put it in that room and you hang all your clothes on it and you can't figure out why I haven't lost any weight. I paid it off. So that's exactly what it is. It's exactly like that. It's where you have to take control. And you know, I'm going to tell you something. What's really interesting, at first you think, oh, I have to do this. And when you do, it is so empowering.
I found it, that's what I found, that I really am more conscious now. Even my girlfriend Lana right here, she said to me, I said, I ate at 4 o'clock. She said, you must be starved. I said, I'm not even hungry.
Yes.
I think I want to do this so much because I don't take insulin and I don't want to.
Right.
So that's my goal, is not to take insulin.
Right. Thank you for sharing that. That is so important to know that once you do this, once you start cutting those carbohydrates and you start bringing that whole system back into balance, okay? I'm not for high colonics or all these other wonderful things that you can do, but when you bring this back into balance, you really see the difference. I hear somebody talking.
It's me.
Oh. Go ahead, share it with us.
I was just commenting that once you start to take insulin, it is harder to lose weight.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
Pardon me?
What about metformin?
That's not insulin.
No, it's not the same thing. Although,
I think that just blocks it from going to the liver or something.
no, metformin makes you less insulin resistant. That's what metformin does. So, and there's, you know, you really should know. Again, you should know what you're taking and what it does. I haven't said it enough last week. I'm going to try to repeat it as much as I can today. Question everything. Everything your doctor tells you, I want you to question. And especially after you've had these classes, because now you know what to ask. Yes, Laura?
I don't understand when you're saying metformin makes you less insulin resistant. Could you say it again? I mean, what it means?
What metformin does, and you know, we could look this up because again, I don't know, I'm not a pharmacist or anything, but what I understand metformin does is makes your cells, remember how we showed you those receptors and all? Well, it tends to make you less resistant in that your receptors are more open, they're more receptive. There's a clown in every group. No, they make it more receptive, and they do open. When the insulin comes, they won't do open as well, but they try to, yes, it helps that. So that's kind of what metformin does. Again, the person to really check with is not even your doctor. Pharmacist. The pharmacist knows medications. They study. I have a grandson who is studying to be a pharmacist, so really though, but I mean, pharmacy is the place you want to go when you want to know something about your medications. Hyperinsulinemia, which is a big word that says you have got too much insulin. Now, as a diabetic, did a doctor ever tell you you have too much insulin? they probably say, oh, your pancreas is burned out, your pancreas is not producing enough insulin, you need to take insulin, you need to take metformin, you need to take Actos, you need to take all these other wonderful drugs and stuff. But never will you hear them say, or very seldom, wow, you got too much insulin, that's what's going on. What I talked about last week was insulin can be your best friend or it can be the villain. And when you have too much insulin, it is the villain. By eating carbohydrates, that's how your insulins go up. Remember we talked about that? The only way that insulin responds is when you take carbohydrates in. It doesn't respond to fats. It doesn't respond to protein, or if it does, it's very little. But when carbohydrates come in, it just comes rushing in. So insulin is very, very interesting, and because if you have too much. When you have too much insulin, this is what causes you to gain weight. It causes you to have sore ligaments and sore muscles. It causes frozen shoulder. It causes so many problems in your body. And you think, wow, you know, I thought I didn't have enough insulin. I'm taking medication and that whole bit. So the beta cells can burn out by doing this. So you're taking in so many carbohydrates that your beta cells now burn out. Now you have to go on insulin. Now you don't have any, all right, because you just burned them out. You ate so much carbohydrates that you burned them out because the insulin has just been flowing like crazy. Or the insulin will cause your system all kinds of problems. And if you notice that this is what was going on with Dick, you can see how really bloated he is because he was taking insulin as well as taking metformin and all that, and eating lots of carbohydrates, 13, 14 points a day.
Why don't they do an insulin thing?
Right, and that's a very good question. Janet wants to know, how come they don't do an insulin test on you? They take an HA1C on you, why don't they do an insulin test on you? And they do, if you know, to ask for it. And I'm not sure if I have a slide on it or not, but we do have it in here, but I'm going to tell you now, as long as we're talking about it. It's called a C, the letter C, dash peptide, C-peptide test. C-P-E-P-T-I-D-E, peptide, C-peptide test. And it comes, you can ask your doctor that you want it, and it comes right along with your hemoglobin A1C. You don't have to draw extra blood or anything like that. They can do it while they're doing the HA1C. The C-peptide test is not exactly a measurement of how much insulin your beta cells are putting out, but rather it is a measurement of an enzyme that reacts to the insulin, the natural insulin only that you're putting out. And the C-peptide test is the best test that they have to find out how is your pancreas doing. Is it putting out nothing? Is it putting out some, but not very much? Or is it normal? About 6 years ago, I think it was, something like that, I asked the doctor to do a C-peptide test for Dick. And the results came back that his beta cells were putting out a normal amount of insulin. Yet they had him on insulin injections. Now, why do you suppose that was? He was putting out a normal amount of insulin to cover a normal amount of carbohydrates. But he was eating so many carbohydrates that it couldn't handle all that he was eating. So he had to go on metformin, from metformin he had to go on insulin and other drugs to try to cover this. And you see what you're doing? You're masking. You're just putting more stuff into your system when what you've got to do is kind of what you were saying, Janet, earlier. You got to find out what's causing it. And what's causing it is you're out of balance. You've got too many carbohydrates coming in, and your poor pancreas can't keep up with it. Don't forget, we have high fructose corn syrup in everything. Everything. And when they took the fat out, they put the sugar in. So everything you're eating, you're saying, well, Mary, I don't eat that many carbohydrates. Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. You wouldn't have the weight if you didn't. So you have to understand that this is the whole process. This is the way we understood it, and that's the result. I have my husband back. I have him back. Johnny Bowden, in his book, talks about when you give a person insulin and when you keep putting all that medication into a person because they are insulin resistant, because they are type 2 diabetic, he claims that it is like, if his analogy is if you had a power plant in this city that went down, and it took like maybe 4 or 5 engineers to really figure out what was wrong, but this was an emergency. So the city calls in 20,000 power plant workers to get into this power plant to find out what's wrong and to get it fixed. We got an emergency. The computers are down. Transportation is down. Everything is at a standstill. We got to get this fixed. So we're going to bring in 20,000 workers to fix it. What you didn't think about, though, Mr. Mayor or Mr. City Council, was what the ramifications are of bringing in those 20,000 workers. You've got now traffic jams. You've got housing problems. You've got maybe even crime going up. So what did you accomplish by bringing in those 20,000 workers when if you just had a little patience and really said, wait a minute, what's the problem? And said, oh, this is the problem, and it's going to take 2 people to fix it. You could have fixed it very easily. So I like his analogy to that. So this is the same thing as when you're taking these drugs and you're constantly putting them in there. The doctor must give them to you. The doctor is keeping you alive. Please don't hear and don't interpret what I'm saying is I shouldn't be taking my drugs. You absolutely must take your drugs because that is keeping you alive right now. But you must absolutely start to think about another way to fix that power plant other than bringing in 20,000 drugs. Because we saw that what happens to the pancreas, and when you eat the carbohydrates, you get lots and lots of insulin. So if you're on insulin, your doctor is your best guide. Gee, doc, can I start? I'm going to reduce my carbohydrates. You don't ask him, you tell him. I'm going to reduce my carbohydrates. I want your help with this. And your doctor should be able to help you with no problem at all. And then your doctor will tell you, okay, if you're going to reduce your carbohydrates, you need to start reducing your insulin. And the doctor will tell you. Now, we're going to get into that in just a minute also about hypoglycemia, hyperglycemia, and all that other good stuff. And that's a good point. You really do have to be careful. All right, so insulin's job is storage, and it prevents fat from burning. So think of it this way. Think of it as the old fruit cellar. It stores everything. It doesn't let anything go. We talked about what is a normal blood sugar. And in a non-diabetic, a normal blood sugar, fasting blood, is 85 to 95 milligrams per deciliter. That's just a measurement. Their HA1C, which is a hemoglobin A1C, is 4.5 to 5.5%. And that is a non-diabetic. Dr. Bernstein believes, and you'll probably hear him even say it at least once tomorrow if you listen to the webinar, that all diabetics deserve the same blood glucose as a diabetic, as a non-diabetic. And his HA1C is 4.5. I believe that's what his last one was. He's a type 1. No, Dick's is not. Dick's is a little higher. But his is, and I'll tell you what Dr. Bernstein eats. Okay? Dr. Bernstein's is 4.5. And this is after the American diabetes diet almost killed the man. When you read that book, you will see that it almost killed him. And it was only through the grace of God and the fact that he was an engineer that he could figure out what was going on. So he has a 4.5. I don't know what I was going to say. What he eats. Thank you. He espouses a 6, 12, and 12, which is 6 grams of carbohydrates for breakfast, 12 for lunch, and 12 for dinner, period. That's all he eats in terms of carbohydrates. That is a total of what, 2 points?
2.
Okay, so about a total of 2 points a day. And that's how he keeps his blood sugars at this level. Your body does not need carbohydrates. It is not a nutrient that you need. You get the amount of carbohydrates you need in protein. There's enough sugar in protein. There's enough sugar in what you take in. Think about it. Dr. Bernstein eats just a little over 2 points every day. And he says, people ask him about, when you go past a bakery, what do you think? When you smell that bakery cooking, he says his answer is, I thank God that I'm alive to sniff it. Because I couldn't do it if I went in there and I ate that bakery. We're going to talk about hypoglycemia or low blood sugar. Hypoglycemia is when, what Janet was talking about, if you are on insulin, let's just say, for an example, you're on insulin and you took insulin and you decided that you're going to be eating in a half an hour, whatever they tell you on insulin, if you're that insulin dependent, and you need to take it before every meal. So you took it and something came up and you couldn't eat. Something happened and you couldn't eat. Guess what? You better have eaten, because your blood sugars are going to drop like a stone. That's what the insulin will do to you. And that is a very dangerous situation. Hypoglycemia can lead to death, lead to coma, lead to death. And I've got a slide here that will tell you a little bit about what some of the symptoms are. The symptoms are foggy brain, irritability, confusion, hunger, big time hunger, the chills. And there is such a thing called hypoglycemia unawareness, which means that if you are in a hypoglycemic state, you may not even be aware of it yet. Your family and friends will know, but you don't know, because you're becoming a raving lunatic. You really are, because your blood sugar is dropping. Now, you can get a low blood sugar even if you are just on metformin. Believe me, Dick went through many, many episodes of this. I think I told you that we did not know this, but every night before he went to bed, he would put a bath towel on his pillow, because when his blood sugar dropped during the night, he got profuse sweating, and his pillow would get wet. You haven't had a bath towel on your pillow in, I can't even remember, since you started this. I think I told you last week that Dr. Bernstein, when his wife is a physician, and when he would be going into a hypoglycemic episode, because he was, of course, taking insulin, she would say to him, here's a glass of orange juice, I think you need it. At one point, he threw the orange juice at her, thinking that she was trying to kill him. That's when your brain gets all scrambled. You can't think straight. That's the foggy brain syndrome. The sugar, what you need is not getting up there anymore. So, and because your insulin is just bringing it way down, and you get this foggy brain syndrome. So he thought that she was trying to kill him, which is really awful, isn't it? I mean, holy cow. So you really want to be careful. And when you notice this happening, I brought along with me these Dex 4. You should keep these in your purse especially if you're on insulin. Absolutely keep these in your purse. They're the dextrose tablets. Okay, and what they do, I believe, is equal to 1 point, 15 grams for every dextrose tablet in here. And what you do is you follow, and I'm going to show you this. There's some others here, if I can just put this on here. The dextrose 4, the glucose tablets, take some orange juice, drink some Coca-Cola. There's also a glucose a gel that you can squirt into your mouth. So there's a number of different ways that you can start to bring up your sugar, your blood sugar. But here's what I will caution you. If you're going to drink a Coke, you're going to drink 3 points in that Coke, 45 grams, okay? And what may happen is you're going to get a rebound effect, and you're going to go real high now, okay, which is not good either. So that's why I really, really encourage, and so does Dr. Bernstein, these Dextrose 4 tablets, because what you're doing is you're, again, controlling your situation. You're taking one. What you do is you take one, and it's the same thing with the orange juice. You take 4 ounces of orange juice only, because that's equal to 1 point, 15 grams. and you wait 15 minutes. You take your blood sugar again, and you see if it's coming up. If it is not coming up, you take another tablet or some more orange juice, another 4 ounces, and you wait another 15 minutes. It should now be normal, or it should be way up by now. If it is not, you need to call your doctor or 911, because you could be going into a diabetic coma, or you could be going into hypoglycemic coma. And that is really a terrible thing. And when that happens, you can't take anything by mouth. And God forbid that anybody should try to get anything into you. Orange juice, Coca-Cola, even the glucose gel. If you have a spouse that has this problem and they go into this hypoglycemia, don't even try to do that if they have passed out. What can you do and what should you do? Well, if you're on insulin, your doctor should have written you a prescription for a glucagon kit. This is a glucagon kit. And you need to tell your coworkers, your family, where it is and how to use it. The instructions are right there. They're very easy. They're very simple to use. They're printed on there. You just shake the bottle and put the syringe in, pull it out, and stick it anywhere. You don't have to stick it in the tummy. You stick it anywhere in the person. And that will release the glucagon from the liver, which is also glucose. It is stored in the liver, and the action will release that glucagon. It will start to bring your blood sugars up, and you will start to come out of this coma, or this passing out. You'll start to come out of it. When you do come out of it, you need to take something. You need to take a dextrose tablet. You need to take 4 ounces of orange juice. You need to make sure that you're bringing that blood sugar up, because this glucagon only lasts for a short while. The whole idea of a glucagon kit is to get you out of that coma, get you awake again enough to take something by mouth. Any questions on that? Yes?
You say this happens when your blood sugar level is less than 60.
Yes, when it falls. And now, that's a good point. I'll say less than 60, but as I said before, for other people, for some people, like if you're running blood sugars of 240 or whatever, all the time, if you're down to 100 or if you're down to 120, you may feel like you're going to go into a diabetic coma. You may feel like you're going to go into a hypoglycemic issue. Honest with you, I don't know if you would, but the normal range is anything 70 or below can cause this to happen. So you want to get that blood sugar up past 70. You want to get it up at least to 85. Better to get it up to 90. And if you can't, you need to call 911 or your doctor. You may have taken insulin, but you didn't eat enough to cover that insulin. See, they're giving you insulin to cover the carbohydrates you've eaten. Okay? And if you didn't eat any carbohydrates, you're taking the little bit of blood sugar that you have, and it's dropping it even lower. So if you haven't eaten anything, you got to be very careful. It's a very important aspect of this. It's people don't understand. They even have now for type 1 diabetics, they have a, what is it called? It's an alarm that you actually put on your side, and it will go off during the night if your glucose levels fall too low. Because, and that especially if you are living alone and you're taking insulin, they want you to have something like this, because you could go to bed and not get up because you just, Okay, hyperglycemia, are we clear on that one? Okay, hyperglycemia is the too high of a blood sugar. It went too high. And some of the symptoms of hyperglycemia, high blood sugar, is blurred vision, extreme thirst, bad breath, headache, frequent urination, and extreme hunger. And if this is happening and you take your blood sugar and it's really, really high, there's really nothing you can do. You need to get to a hospital right away. You need to call 911 or you need to get into an emergency situation. And you know what? You're better off calling 911 because the paramedics can really take care of you. I always recommend that you call 911, even if you just think you have a problem. I had a fellow just last year, a friend of a friend, who was having chest pains, said to his wife, I just feel, and she said, well, do you want me to call 911? Nah, no, he's okay. He said, a little while later, said, you know what, call our son. The son was in the shower. Son got out of the shower, got dressed real fast. Father died in his car on the way to the hospital. You call 911. You call 911. That's their job. That's what they're sitting there for. They want you to call them. So please do call them. And now, this is another very important point, the Medic Alert bracelet or chain. This is a Medic Alert Foundation where you can purchase one of these. How many people, if you wouldn't mind, you don't have to show me, but by a show of hands, how many people are wearing a Medic Alert bracelet? Wow. Okay, so why should you do that? Why should you do that? So they know you're a diabetic. You pass out. You're going to say, oh, but you know what, Mary, I've never had a problem before. I've never passed out. I don't have low blood sugar. You pass out, and they get to you, and they're going to think one of two things. One is they may think you're drunk, and they may throw you in jail. And you'll die there because you were having a diabetic coma. Okay? Or they'll say, maybe this person's diabetic, which I doubt. They're not going to think that. They're going to think that something else is wrong. So you wear a bracelet, you wear a necklace like Dick does, you wear a tattoo. Some people, I'm not into tattoos, but some people actually wear a tattoo. Now I'm going to give you another story of what happened to somebody that was very near and dear to us. My dear father-in-law, who had an industrial accident at work one day, a cable, pulled off his arm, actually pulled it right off, threw him into a pit because it was pulling in the train cars, pulling the train cars into this warehouse, and he had his hand on the button, and anyway, threw him into the pit, which is very dirty, of course, right? And hurt his back, broke his other arm. And they rushed him into the hospital. And what do you suppose the first thing they did? They filled him full of penicillin. You know why? Because he fell into all that dirt. He's allergic to penicillin. So he blew up like a balloon. Dick said when he went in there, he couldn't even recognize his dad. He said he looked like he had been scalded with water because he was so bad. So my father-in-law, being the feisty little Polak that he was, great guy, he said to them, it was in my wallet that I'm allergic to penicillin. Why didn't you look? And you know what their response was? Absolutely right. Mr. Kolk, the condition that you came in here, we didn't have time to look in your wallet. You should be wearing it on a chain or a bracelet. After that, the man always wore one. So yes, you should always wear one. Talk about blood tests. Isn't that great? You have the 2-hour blood test, the oral glucose tolerance test, and you have the daily fasting blood test. I hate to ask people because I know there's these HIPAA laws, and I know if you don't want to raise your hand, don't have to, please. But I want you to ask yourself, how often do you take your blood test if you're a type 2 diabetic? How often during the day? I had one guy in our last class that said, I think I took it like about, maybe 5 months ago or something like that. Oh my God. All right, daily glucose testing. First of all, I want you to absolutely make sure you wash your hands when you go to take your glucose test. Do not use alcohol. Never, ever use alcohol on your finger because what will happen is you will dry out your finger and you will start to get calluses, and it's not a very good thing to do. All you really need to do is wash your hands. That's all you need to do. If you get a reading that is way too high or even way too low, take your test again. Either use the other hand, wash your hands again. Make sure you don't use anything, the soaps also. Make sure you rinse them really well. You don't want to have any residue. If you've touched anything just before that, you'd be amazed at how that can throw your whole thing out of whack. So always wash your hands.
What about the alcohol wipes?
Don't use alcohol at all. You don't need it, and it will only tend to dry your skin out. And as a diabetic, you don't need to dry your skin out anymore. And that's one of the big problems with diabetics is the dry skin. So no, all you need is soap and water. Ask your doctor. The doctor will tell you the exact same thing, that you're better off with just plain soap and water. Okay, 85 to 90 milligrams per deciliter is where you should be coming in. Don't know where you're coming in, but that's where you should be coming in. Now, look, you're going to go a little higher, you're going to go a little lower. Dick does not stick to the 32 grams of carbohydrates that Dr. Bernstein recommends. That's why I say that I developed this program, because through all the reading and the research that I've done in the 9 years that I've been into this, what I have come to realize is that even if you brought these down halfway to 4.5 or 85 to 90, from where you're at, you would make a marked improvement in your life. So that's just so important. You always want to take your medication on time. Metformin, I believe, is supposed to be taken like 30 minutes either before or after meal. I don't remember what it is, but it's before meals. Okay, so take it on time. Don't take it 3 hours later and go, wow, my blood sugars are really high. Don't do that. Respect that medicine. That medicine is keeping you alive, and do what you need to do and take that medication when you need to take it. Okay, we are out of time. We wanted to talk about the hemoglobin A1C, but I think we're going to get into that next week. I also want to tell you what we're going to talk about next week, if I can find it in my notes. Oh, there was one other thing I just got to share this with you. I have to have surgery on my knee. Okay, I got a torn meniscus. Exercise is really bad for you. No, I just did something at the track and I pulled my meniscus. So we went to the ortho surgeon over at the Cleveland Clinic a couple months ago, right? And great guy. And he said, first of all, he said to me, now think about this. We eat bacon and eggs every day. We eat a lot of meat. And when we have a steak, it's got a lot of fat on it, okay? They took x-rays of both of my knees. He said, you know, I would take an MRI to make sure it was a meniscus. He said, but that would only tell me whether it was a meniscus or arthritis. And you don't have even the smallest amount of arthritis in your knees. That's because I watch my carbohydrates. I'm telling you, it affects everything. So we talked about this, and then I mentioned about Dick. And the rest of the appointment was spent talking about my husband. 20 minutes, we talked about Dick and how wonderful it was that, you know, what had happened to him and how he had lost all this weight and come off of insulin and all. The doctor wanted to know if we would, he said he had a personal friend who was a reporter for Channel 3. He said this story must get out. He said, so will you speak to the reporter? I said, give me 2 minutes. I'd be more than happy to speak to anybody because I want the story to get out. But here's the big thing. He looked at Dick after we had talked to him for a while, and he said to my husband, do you realize without this program, you would have been dead by now? So that is part of what I wanted to leave you with. The good news is your life is in your hands. The bad news is your life is in your hands. Yikes. And I think about something that Maya Angelou said to Oprah many, many years ago. when you knew better, you did better. You all are starting to know better. I'm hoping you're going to be able to do better. Next week, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about what Dick and I eat. We're also going to talk about the HA1C, which we didn't get to. How about alcohol? Is that okay? What foods and snacks should we avoid? Eating out, a biggie, a biggie. Restaurants, you need to hear this one. How to implement our program into your lives. And as we were talking here, and I need to tell you, this is not a diet. This is a lifestyle. And we'll talk about that next week as well. And we're also going to talk about something that I find extremely interesting. It's something that I've just discovered a short time ago. It's about why and how you age. You're going to find this to be very, very interesting. So I appreciate you coming. I hope you've learned something. I did see a few light bulbs going off. And we'll see you back here next week at 6 o'clock. Thank you all very much. Thank you.